Hello, everybody. My name is Busy Matt. I'm here today, joined by non-busy Josh.
Not busy, Josh. Finally got a weekend off, Josh.
Yeah. So, you've got a nice long break here from Pigface filming for a while, so that's gotta feel good, right?
Yeah. It's weird because I woke up and I was like, man, I don't have to I never have to. Let's just start with that. But I don't get to go make a movie today. I can do whatever I want. And then I was like, man, I kind of want to go make a movie today. So it's a weird thing, I don't know. It's a weird thing. So.
Yeah, you yo-yo back and forth. I yo-yo back and forth all the time. It's like, oh yeah, man, I'd love to make a movie again. And then the next day I'm like, fuck that. Why would I want to do that?
Yeah.
And you just never know. Ultimately, the siren call will always bring us back, I'm sure, at some point in time. But it is that interesting aspect. You just kind of some days you feel like it, and then other days you realize how hard and tiring it is, and you don't want to do it, and it's just, you vacillate back and forth.
Yeah.
You're retired, then you're not unretired, then you're retired, then you're unretired. Who knows?
Isn't it nice to be in that spot where you can just kind of choose to retire and then unretire and then re-retire?
Yes. I will say that it has been, because I guess my most recent retirement was 2020. So we're into 2022 now. It's been over 2 years. Yeah. And it seems crazy, time flies, right?
Yeah. But especially when your unretirement's coming in 2023. So awesome.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. This might be. I'm thinking is this the longest I've ever gone quote unquote retired? Because I know that I retired in 2016. Was that when we showed Isabel and?
Yeah, but I don't even think you made it a year.
Yeah, I think this is actually the longest I've ever been quote unquote retired.
Right.
Over 2 years now at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna lie. It's felt nice not having any big responsibility sort of on my plate.
Right.
But we'll never. You never know what might happen in the future.
We're talking retirement on the Once More for Safety show.
That'll be an episode that we do, ladies and gentlemen, where we just talk about why we retire and then why we unretire. It's a thing. There's a whole thought process that goes into it. So
how you can never really leave.
Yeah, it just keeps pulling you back. So you selected the topic. This is kind of a last-minute topic, Josh. Again, we've been really busy. We have all these plans, folks. We have all of these different shows that we're going to do, interviews that we want to line up with people. But I know on my end, I have just been so ridiculously busy. A lot of it has to do with work. My work is crazy right now, and then I come home, and it's I don't want to do anything else.
Right.
But I still have all these sort of commitments to the Outpost Unknown channel and things of that nature. And I was like, hey, what do you want to talk about? And you kind of came up with this topic, and what are we talking about today?
I feel like we've talked about things that kind of lead up to this on the show, but we haven't actually talked about what goes into pre-production, everything you do before you have to make a movie. So I thought that would be kind of a fun little topic, or a stressful topic, or whatever you want to call it, topic to tackle for the day. So
yeah, and there's so much that goes into pre-production. But I think the best thing for us to do on this, because I assume that for example, if we talk about casting, we'll have an entire big, much fuller episode on the casting process and how you do that. But I do think it is going to be kind of fun to just sort of walk through the steps of what you have to plan for, and maybe just touch a little bit on what we have to do for those particular steps, and which ones we look forward to the most, which ones we dread the most. I think will be interesting. And I kind of cheated a little bit, because I was like, we have to have some sort of outline for this. So I went to a website that just listed a bunch of different things in pre-production, and I'll just sort of run through them. Those will be our sort of topics, and whether or not we as micro budget filmmakers actually do these things or not, because there's a process that real legitimate productions go through that actually have big budgets that micro budget filmmakers, we don't necessarily do. You know, or we sort
Yeah.
of smash them all together and one person does all of these things, or something.
Right.
So as we sort of go through this, I'll just sort of throw out each bullet point that this website listed, and then we can kind of discuss: do we do this? If we do, how do we do it? Sort of thing.
If you have 10 things on that list, I'd probably skip 8 of them. So, I mean, that's just
There's 11.
how it goes for us.
There's
So,
11 things on this list. 11.
probably skip 9 of them.
Okay, well, the very first one, let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
The very first one that this website said was, and this is funny because we've talked about this on our script writing show. The first thing is lock the shooting script. So, Josh, have you ever locked a shooting script as a micro budget filmmaker?
You know what? I can't even tell you what that means. Uh, uh,
That's amazing.
you know, yeah, I mean, generally finish up a script before you send that out. I guess I've never used the term "I've locked the script," so I've never used that term
That's
ever in my life.
That's because it does not exist for micro budget filmmakers. We don't
Okay.
we don't lock shooting scripts. And I think I can speak for you on this. We, at least I do, I view everything that I write as sort of a living document, right?
Yeah.
It's changing the day of filming.
Yeah.
Actors are doing new lines. We might be changing the lines based on the context of the scene as we're sort of playing it out. So there is no quote unquote locking the shooting script. Essentially, what that means in real professional sort of settings is, let's say Josh writes a script and he's on draft 6, and then before we sort of go into pre-production, Josh says, all right, this is the final version of this script. This is what we're going with. Version 7.0, it's locked. I'm not changing anything else. And then you then send that script out to your various collaborators, whether it's effects artists or, anybody else that's sort of working on it. And like, okay, this is the script we're going off. It's not that then Josh would send that out as the locked script, and then suddenly there's version 10.0 that everybody gets where things have been changed and whatnot. And I think Pigface could be a good example of this, right?
Oh yeah.
So you had a script, then you sent it to me. I looked
Mhm.
it over. There was even a scene that I sort of wrote in there, expanded on
Right.
the death scene in there. Was that your locked script, or did it change after that?
No, that script went to you. It went to Greg. It went to like Patrick. I mean, it went to 5 other people that were working on that script as well. So, I mean, we shot, was it last weekend, and and that scene wasn't even locked. So, I mean, we were changing shit up to last week. So,
Yeah, and the
yeah.
script you gave, well, I assume so. The script that was at the initial sort of read through
Hmm.
last October, was that the same script that was shot yesterday?
No,
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 no.
no,
Fancy
absolutely not.
fancy pants Hollywood stuff can get away with locking the shooting script and things of the nature. I don't think micro budget filmmakers get that luxury personally, because
No,
even when we write something and we think that it's okay, we're going to lock this down. When you get on set, it's like, well, things got to change. The effects must change because it won't fit on the eye socket of the actress. So now we got to rewrite the entire way we were originally going to film the quote unquote locked
right.
this.
Now,
So, yeah,
in fairness though, we're talking right now as genre filmmakers. So like we're talking as horror filmmakers
correct.
where shit changes on the fly because something doesn't work. If you're out there writing comedies and dramas and stuff like that, you could lock a script like that you could be a micro budget filmmaker and shoot a drama, and that script can be locked because you're more than likely not going to run into an effects issue and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you might be somebody who's like, I want you to say the words as I have written them, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. There might not be necessarily a need to ad lib a whole lot on like a very serious drama. Comedies, I think, might be a little different because I think
yeah,
actors really like to ad lib that kind of stuff.
right.
But tell me about, like, have you ever had a script that you have really believed in that you're like, look, I want the actors to say these lines. I want them to do this. This is really what I want. Or do you just always sort of say, actors, correct whatever it is, make it better?
The very first film that I wrote and shot, everybody stuck pretty close to the actual draft I wrote, and that one was tough for me because that one was probably the closest to me script I ever wrote, as far as like just being very like I guess it's close to my heart. So I had a hard time, and I would have had a hard time letting people change that one. But ever since that one, I've let loose and I let anybody change whatever the fuck they want to. So
Yeah. Very
now I don't care.
very first thing that I made in 1999, I had a whole script for it. Nobody showed up, and we had to ad lib and rewrite the whole thing on the fly. And then the very
Yeah.
first feature film I did was The Grand Horror, 2005, and I wrote a whole script out for that, but everything it was more of an outline. Like the literal
Mhm.
way I wrote the script was I described everything that happened in the scene, and then I'd put the lines underneath it, and then just you say guidepost. Just say so, just touch on these topics and in some way, shape, or form, and then we'll edit it all together. Which is not a way that I recommend doing it in the
That
future.
would have probably that like had to be like continuity hell
Oh yeah,
for an editor.
but I didn't know any better.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
I had no idea until I got in the editing room, and it was like, oh
Yeah,
shit, every single take is completely different.
yeah,
So, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't really believe in locking the shooting scripts anyway.
No,
Ultimately, at least for micro budget. If I was working on a $10 million production or something, maybe then I'd be like, okay, yes, I'm locking this in. But no, we don't really do that. So I'm gonna cross that one off the list. So we already do that
doesn't
one.
count.
Doesn't count for
Yeah.
us. All right, next, finalize the budget. Do we ever finalize budgets, Josh?
The question to you is, well, I know the answer to this question for you, but I've never had a budget, ever, not once. My budget is what I have in my pocket and what my wife will let me spend. That's my budget. So, I've never crowdfunded. I've never, which is not to say again, you can't, because everybody is to each their own. But I've never had a budget, so I don't know. I've never locked in a budget because I've never had one. So that's me.
Interesting. I personally have never had a budget in any of my movies. Now, Mark Popejoy has. When I've been making movies for him, there's
Right.
budgets there. Like, for example, Hysteria or Devil's Corkscrew, or Bed and Breakfast, something like that. Basically everything that was in Chills Down Your Spine, he put up the money for all of that. And
Right.
I didn't put in a dime for any of that unless it was like, hey, I'm buying food today for the cast and crew or something like that. Other films that I've worked on, like Shivers Down Your Spine, no, there was no real hard budget. I mean, there was no planned budget going ahead. Like, I have $1,000 and that's all I'm spending.
Right.
On Isabel, we really wanted. We're like, hey, we have a budget of $3,000 because that's what we sort of raised from convention hopping, selling out post doom and whatnot. But we blew through that, and we really blew through that, and it was just like, well, we just got to keep spending money until it's done.
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, as micro budget filmmakers, at least in my sense, I've never had a hard budget myself. But when we have Mark Popejoy on as a guest, he'd be a good one to talk to about that.
Yeah. Well, especially because I mean, Mark, put boots to the ground and went out and got a budget. If I
Try to raise money.
understand correctly. Yeah. Um, so he's definitely somebody, yeah, we can chat with about how he approached going about um, talking to people about giving money. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
what I think is interesting about the budget stuff is I know many other filmmakers over the years who have had budgets because that's all it can quote unquote afford, whether it's 500
right,
bucks or a couple thousand. Myself personally, I've never been in a situation where I've kind of needed to have a tight budget. That's just not something that I have any real experience with. But I do appreciate the fact that, lots of people do have to have that strict budget. And I think it also makes
Mhm.
things more creative. It's like, how do I get around making this thing when I only have X amount of money? What can I do?
Right.
So I think you can actually be far more creative if you don't have sort of unlimited resources to kind of dump into something.
Right.
All right, so that's number two.
Budget check.
Budget. We don't do that with our micro budget films either.
Okay, so far out of the 11, I'm 0 for 2. So I'm just,
So
I guess not. I guess 9 of the things I'd be 0 for. So I said 2 for 11 is what I would be good for. So I'm just making my checklist
all
now.
right,
So far, I'm 0 for 2.
number three. Determine key department heads. Do we ever have department heads?
Where the fuck did you get this list? Jesus Christ.
Website. This is the first thing that popped up on Google. Like,
Damn this list. No. I have friends that sometimes are like, hey, I'll come out and do this. And generally, for 10 years and change, I've just been wearing a million hats. So,
yep.
so I don't have a department head. It would be funny if I had a department head because I wouldn't know what to tell that person what to do. So, to be honest with you, I wouldn't know what to say to them or to tell them what to do. So I feel like having a lot of people on micro budget sets also, you get a lot of people standing around, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I've had it where we've had an actual crew on an actual film, and it was 3 people doing something and 7 people watching those 3 people doing something.
I hate
So,
having a big crew with a bunch of people
yeah.
dedicated to it. I would much, much rather just have like 3 or 4 dedicated people, myself, Steve, DJ, Mark, who, just showing up and doing everything.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I've done that before. There's a very famous film that I really hated the experience on because everybody, I mean, God, we were like, hey, let's do this right. Let's have a cinematographer and let's have
Hmm.
audio people and let's have a caterer and let's have, a production assistant and all this. It was awful. I hated it. Too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yep.
Just too.
It's a waste.
Yeah. So I guess when in our terms, when we say quote unquote determine key department heads, that's not us saying, okay, we're gonna put I guess it can kind of fit for us because it's like, okay, in my case, for example, right? DJ knows everything about the cameras. DJ's the camera guy. So I guess he's the head.
Mhm.
He's the quote unquote department head of the camera.
Right.
But he also does double duty, right? So he'll also know everything about the audio equipment, or Mark will know everything about how to run the boom and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I might run everything else, or we'll have special effects artist who's sort of like the head of that department. So I guess in a way we kind of determine key department heads, but only be out of necessity. It's like you're the expert at this, therefore that's just your job.
Yeah, I just call those people friends. So,
Yes, we
um,
determine key department friends.
yeah, here's my friends that do effects. Here's my friends that can hold a boom, and here's my friend that'll run a camera.
So
Done.
do we count that? Is that one for us? Do we?
I'm not. I'm counting that as a 0.
That's a zero.
I'm 0 for 3 for me.
Okay. Let's see. What's next here? Break down the script. Do you break down your scripts?
I mean, does that just mean do I make fun of my writing all the time? Yeah, all the time. I
No.
just break
No,
down.
no, no.
I know what
Are
it
you
means.
sure?
I was kidding.
You weren't sure what a
No.
whip pan was, so I just want to make sure. I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
if you're familiar with these terms.
We're about to go into an argument on this show because I know what a whip pan is.
Not until we told you.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not even going to get into this fucking argument. I've had this argument multiple times, and these people don't need to hear me be like, "I know what a whip pan is." Um, break down my script. No, I don't. I don't know.
Okay, so I do this. So I'm going to chalk this as one up in my column, and I'll give you an example of what I do. So let's say I have a scene We'll use a scene in Bed and Breakfast when Anastasia sort of comes to the kitchen and she finds the ghoul, right? So I will take that scene and I will break down everything that sort of needs to be done with that scene, right? So I'll be like, okay, here are all the lines that Anastasia is going to have to read. Here are all the lines that Simon would have had to do. Here are the effects that are needed in this scene. Here's what kind of lighting that I would like to have in this scene, et cetera, et cetera. So I will do that kind of stuff just so that when we're on set, here's all the props that we need, for example, for this particular scene. I'll break that all down so that it's all ready to go and everybody sort of knows this is what we have, that we absolutely need to have, so that it just moves a little smoother. So you don't do anything like that on yours?
Okay, me personally, I do not. I have seen breakdowners. They're the heads of scene breakdowners on my scripts, so I don't do it. You and Heather did that for Pigface too. You guys broke down
Oh yeah.
the scenes for props and effects. You guys did that. Patrick does that when we're working on stuff. I don't personally go through. I just know, like, I don't, if I'm working by myself, and generally I am, I just know what I need. So, you know what? I will put that as a one. I'm going to put that as a one. That's one thing.
Okay.
I'll count it. I'll count it.
Yeah, because another thing that I will do is I will break down and be like, I want these sorts of like outfits for the characters, right? Anastasia must be wearing sort of like the blouse or whatever in this scene, just so that when I'm on set, we don't forget it. So it's like, I want everything to sort of match up continuity wise as best as it can on a micro budget film set. And so those are just little things that sort of help me remember that stuff. But so I do break down my script. So I'll count that as a one on mine as well. Next up, storyboard and shot list the scenes.
Shit. Yeah, I do that too. God damn it. Okay, I can't have any more. No more things that I do. I do create. I don't storyboard because I can't draw. So even if I did storyboard and I showed my camera operator this is what we're gonna do, they'd be like, I can't. I have no fucking idea what I'm looking at. But so I do break down like shots I do want to get though. I do a shot list. So um, and that's just like I didn't for a long time. And to be honest with you, I didn't do a shot list until I made the first Pigface movie, and that's just because I was doing that stuff on my own, and I didn't have somebody to tell me or remind me to make sure I was getting every angle. So,
Yep, that's fair. I sent you a link here. These are
I
very
see that.
famous. Steven Spielberg is very famous for sort of storyboarding some of his stuff, and those are what Steven Spielberg storyboards look like. So
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
I'm opening it right
These are
now.
his storyboards for the color purple. So he can't draw either. It's like basically just stick figures and stuff like that. I do not storyboard. I have done it in the past. It drives me fucking crazy. I cannot stand it. I also do not do shot lists. So this is one that I will not chalk up. I have done both in the past, but I hate them. I feel like they completely constrain me. They constrain my creativity. I like to get on set and make it completely sort of organic in a way, but I have this kind of ability that I know the shots that I want and they just stay in my head. So it's like the storyboard, I don't actually draw it out. It's just in my head. So for example, that scene that I was unfortunately unable to be there, that you guys killed Nicole on Pigface 2, I had
Yeah.
that whole scene storyboarded in my mind. And like I knew everything that I wanted to do. And then when I'm on set, I will constantly be coming up with like more creative and different things that I want to try out. So shot list, I've tried them. I hate them. I feel like I just become like beholden to them. Things move a lot slower for me for whatever reason when there's storyboards and shot lists. I just hate them. So I'm
Okay, but and with that being said though, if uh you said that slows you down, but if you were having to sit there and think of all the other shots that you want to get, you're taking time to sit there and think of, I need to get this shot. I want to get. Is it slowing you down having to think of the different shots you want to get also, and then coming up with new shots because you're like, oh, this would also be kind of cool. Or do you ever go, ah, man, I forgot to get that shot and I really wanted it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Does
yeah.
that
There's
happen?
always a downside, right? So I'm kind of notorious for those who are listening for the first time. I shoot a million angles of everything. Like I do a ton of takes,
Mhm.
ton of angles, so I have maximum flexibility in the editing room to do whatever it is I want to do. Now there are times when I'm just like in the editing room, oh shit, I forgot this, because when you have ADHD, you bounce around all over the place, and you
Right.
just forget things sometimes. But I would argue that almost everybody that I've seen, and maybe Pigface 2 is different, even when they have storyboards, there's something they forget to do. They're like, oh God, because you get sort of slavishly beholden to drawing every little thing. And even when you're drawing every little thing out, you're like, oh crap, it would have been better to have a different angle here, or I forgot to include a close up here where I might have needed it. So that always happens. But at least for my brain and the way I work when I'm filming, um, I already know. So, like, let's say I had to do 100 storyboards, right? If I were to draw everything out and spend all that time for 100 shots, which I did on Blood Model, for example, there was a whole scene in there where I
Mhm.
did 100 shots, and that's all we needed to get, and it took 15 hours to get those shots. Whereas if I
Yeah.
would have just not wasted my time on those storyboards, it's like it just comes to me immediately. It's like I set up the shot, boom, I get it, and I immediately know where I'm going to set up the camera next. Boom, I keep going, and then as I set up the shot, I'm like, okay, yeah, another one. I think it'd be cool to do this, and I will just immediately do it after that shot is over. So I got it, and then boom, I'm on to the next shot. Now, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. It still takes a long time because I shoot a ton of shit. But the actual process of coming up with the shots that I want isn't what takes a long time for me, if that makes any sense. It's
Yeah.
very weird. I recognize that I am not like most directors. I I work and operate in a completely different way, but that's just kind of how like my mind works.
Right.
So no,
Some people shot list too, though. They shot list to because they already see the movie in their head and how they're gonna do the
yep,
edit, and so they just shot list to how they're gonna cut that movie together anyway. So
yeah, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. As long as the
right,
outcome is what you wanted, doesn't really matter if you do a storyboard and shot list or not. I know that I think it drives Mark Popejoy crazy when I don't have shot list because he comes from that sort of old school, I guess, more like, hey, we need to have everything prepared and ready to go. Whereas I am not that way whatsoever. And I think it can drive the actors a
right,
little crazy too because they're expecting, oh, we're just doing boom, 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 done, done, done. No, 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 no. We're going to have 6 or 7 more shots, and we're going to keep moving, right? So one of the
right.
things that can kind of get exhausting on my sets for the cast and the crew is that when I'm filming, it's not like I shoot a shot and then we have 3 or 4 minutes of downtime while we set up the next shot and we plan and prepare for this next shot. It's like, boom, shoot, I'm picking up the tripod, I'm moving. I'm telling DJ, move the camera over here. Boom, boom, boom. Like we keep moving very, very
Right.
fast. And so it can be a little draining for the actors, I think, who are not used to working in that way. Because even on Pigface 2, there seemed to be a lot of downtime in between sort of setting up shots. And by a lot, I don't mean like you're sitting around for a half an hour, but I just mean like, okay, we got this shot. Now let's reset, get the camera moved over here, move all the lights, move all this, run through your dialogue, blah, 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 blah. I kind of use all of that as I'm mixing it all in together, right? So it's like the actors are getting to run their dialogue just through the sheer amount of shots that I'm setting up, and going quick. So
Right. Right.
it's
Yeah.
weird.
I got
Okay.
it. I got it.
So I'm still only at one. Break down the script.
Okay.
Okay. The
All right.
next one for you here: scout and secure locations.
Okay, I lose. I do that too. Um so when I write, I cheat. So because location uh scouting and location hunting is just not something that I really love to do, I guess. So like I go, hey, I know what I have available to me, and I just write towards that location. Sometimes I'll see a place and I'll be like, I'd really love to shoot in that spot, and I'll talk to somebody and be like, hey, is this available to, can I do this? And then I'll write something for that. But I've never written anything and then be like, oh, now I have to go out and find a location for this. I'm a cheater, I guess. I write for what I have. So
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way, and there's a big reason why. Securing locations is, at least in my experience, by far the most difficult thing to do when you're a micro budget filmmaker. You have this great script or story that you want to do, but you don't have a location to film it in. Trying to find a location that works and finding a location that is willing. They might be willing. Oh yeah, you're a film crew. What are you shooting? Oh, we're going to decapitate some people and blah blah. Nope, nope, nope. Location gone,
right,
right? And so it does sort of hamper your ability to try and write the story the way you might really want it. Like I have a really great film noir story that I love to death. I'm never going to be able to film it because there's no way I could find the locations needed here in Nebraska. And I'm not going to have the funds or the ability to bring all the people I want to bring on a 3 week adventure across the country to the various locations that I need to be able to film something like that in. So when you're a big budget, $10 million, yeah, you can do that. It's easy to scout and secure locations. You'll have a specific person set aside that's their job to go scout and find locations for you, film the locations, take photos of the locations. If it's something you feel like, oh yeah, I might want to do that. Go to the location, travel there, spend all that time. We don't have that luxury a lot with micro budget stuff, especially in Nebraska. Nebraska does not have a lot of what's what I'm looking for, like diverse location areas, I suppose.
right.
It's we'd have to travel a ways. So for example, Bed and Breakfast, that was a film that I told Mark Popejoy, I was like, this will never be filmed because we will never find a location for it. And Mark found a location. It was an actual mansion, but it was in Missouri, St. Joseph, Missouri. And he had dropped thousands of dollars to rent out this mansion for like a weekend. We all had to travel down there. And that's the only reason that film got made, was because I refused to film it if it wasn't in a location that could um, properly showcase what I wanted for that film. But again, it's
Right.
money, it's travel, it's all that. It costs so much that it's prohibitive for us to do this. So yes, I will put this in scout and secure locations. Yes, we do, but not in the way that the
Not a traditional
not,
way.
yeah, not in a traditional way. So I will count that because yes, we do go to places and things of that nature and sort of check them out. If we do find a location, at least for me, I do like to visit that location so I can get an idea of how I will block scenes and how I can shoot scenes and things of that nature. For the Devil's Corkscrew, we went out to that location just so that I could see, the landscape and how I would want to film it. So yeah, we do that.
Do you ever reuse locations, Matt?
Yeah,
Do you ever shoot the same location twice?
yeah. We shot Whirlpool of Night and Hysteria at Tony's house.
Okay.
Both of
Yeah.
those were
Okay.
shot there. Yeah, if we have the ability to like if I have a really cool location available to me, like I have ideas for more short films for the mansion down there in Missouri. Um, I
Oh,
have a number. I have a sequel to Bed and Breakfast, believe it or not. That's written for that. I have another thing that shall not be named at the moment. But again, it all comes down to funds. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going to
right.
shoot it a completely different way, right? Because it's like I might have used these angles, but I'm going to use a different angle here. But yeah, I've
Right.
used the Grand Theater multiple times. That's
That's
another
true. Yeah.
place
Right.
because
Yeah.
you have a cool location like that. Why not utilize it as much as you can? Come up with different ways,
Right.
different areas of it, or different ways to shoot it so it doesn't look exactly the same. So, yep, I do.
Right. I wrote a second script for the remission location, and had it all locked and ready to go, and then it got sold.
Oh, that's too
So
bad.
that was the coolest locations we've ever shot
Yeah.
in, and
Was that a sequel
yeah,
to Remission, or was it something completely
it was no, it's something completely different.
new? Okay,
But
cool.
it would have been fun to revisit the asbestos plant.
And the black
So
mold and the chemicals, and we're all going to
yeah,
get cancer
so
from it, no doubt.
yeah. Anyway,
Next up, cast actors and hire crew.
uh, not the second part. Um, um,
Count
but
this as a half.
yeah, it's a half
Half point.
point. And even like casting, up until the first Pigface movie, I wrote for people that I already had in mind, that I just knew would be good and that I've worked with before. So I'm gonna count it, but again, I cheat. I go, I have this idea and I know this person. I'm gonna write it for them. Nobody's ever really told me no. So um, here, everything I've written for somebody has just worked out. I've never really had. I guess I had an audition one time, but even then, I really hate doing it. I'd
Really?
rather just reach out to people and be like, "Hey, I have this thing. Do you want to do it?" That's how I cast people. So
I used to, in my early days, just cast people I knew, and then it was with Isabel that we decided to branch out and hold auditions for things. And I think for almost every film that I've done since then, I've held auditions. Shivers down your spine, chills down your spine, like all of that
yeah,
stuff. And the reason why is because I love to sort of see the process. I love to get an actor just sort of in the room and getting what their take of the material is right away. Now, one thing I love to do is I hate cold readings. I've done them, but I think you're not putting the actor in the best position possible to succeed when you just say, "Here's the script, read it." In my opinion, like if you're going to hold an audition, give the actor everything they need before they show up, because I want them to spend
right,
that limited amount of time they have. They're usually 10 to 15-minute blocks of time. That's all they got. Why would you ever want to do a cold read where someone doesn't know what they're doing and they got to waste all that time? Give them the script or the sides ahead of time. Let them know if they ask like what you're looking for. I usually send out an email like, "Okay, this is kind of what I'm looking at." Um, and let them give their best performance. And I like that process. What I will say is I
yeah,
don't like interacting with the actors generally. I always have to. But I know there was one audition up at Hot Shops, I think it was, for something. I don't remember what movie it was at this point in time, but it was Mark. I think Heather was there. And I told Mark, I'm like, "Look, I'm just going to sit in the back of the room. I'm not going to say a word. I have my notebook open, and all I want to do is focus on the actor and make notes. I don't care. I don't want to talk to him about what this is about. Oh, hi, I'm the director, and blah, 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 blah. If they have a question and they want to ask, fine, I'll answer them. But I'm just going to sit in the back and do it. I like doing that a lot more than being the one that
yeah,
runs it, right? It has to be like, okay, hi, I'm the director, and this is what I want. Try it again. Do this. I don't like that because I like to have the actors just kind of come in and do whatever. That doesn't mean I won't say something, if I want them to try it a little different way. Usually, if I say, "Hey, yeah, can you try it like this?" It's because I see something in that I like in the performance or the personality of the person, someone who I think would be good to work with that I can do. But generally speaking, yes, I do. Um, Cast actors through auditions. Hiring crew,
yeah.
no. I don't think I've ever paid a crew member in my life,
Mm-mm,
including myself.
no,
Like
right,
this is a big thing. Like we have paid actors for some of the roles that we've had in our movies are just it's a lot, and we're like we're going to pay you something to be able to go through all this.
right.
But I'll tell everybody right now, I have never made a dime on anything I have ever shot. I've never gotten paid for any of the movies. I had to actually ask Mark if I could have $20 to buy a comic book at Crypticon when we were there. We were selling the movies for him, but I was like, "Mark, can I have $20? Is my pitching all day worth $20 to you so I can go buy a comic book?" I
Right.
personally, like, I've never wanted to make money on movies. I've never, demanded I get paid a certain amount for movies. When I did Chills Down Your Spine, that's Mark's movie. Mark produced that thing. I didn't put any money into that movie at all. None. That was all Mark.
Right.
And, I never asked Mark, Mark, I need $15 an hour to spend the next, 100 hours of my life editing this and getting on Google Hangouts every single Sunday for 8-hour days doing special effects with DJ and music and all of it.
Right.
No. That's the thing. Like, I think that with micro budget anyway, and I'll say this just from my perspective. This could piss some people off out there, but again, this is just my perspective as someone who has done this. The people like the director, the editor, the visual effects artist, and who are in post production, because we're in pre production right now, right? Post
Right.
production is so much fucking work. Like, actors have no idea. Yes, you might be on set for 6 weeks and they're like 12-hour, 13, 14-hour days. You're like, man, I did a lot of work on this. No, that's just mostly sitting around waiting. Not only to the directors and the crew people have to do the pre-production, they got to go through the production, and then there's hundreds of hours of post production that has to be happening
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. None of us are getting paid for any of it. So
Right.
it's hard for me to have a lot of sympathy for people like, I demand to get paid on this. I was like, well, shit. If I demanded to get paid for, that 10 times the amount of time I'm putting in this movie than you're putting into it, there'd be no movie at all. Because there just wouldn't be enough money. And I remember DJ and I coming back from a convention one weekend, and we actually calculated like the going rate for what we would do, and we added it all up for how many hours. We did a rough estimate how many hours we'd put into the movie in pre-production, production, post-production, and for all the different hats that we wore to do all this stuff. And it came out to like $75,000 is what we would be
Right.
making if we were like unionized and getting paid scale and all that for all this various stuff. So for me personally, and again, I know everyone wants to get paid. I understand. I would love to get paid for all the stuff. I would love to get $50 an hour to do the editing and stuff for all this stuff, but it's not realistic. It's not realistic on a micro budget film set. So, I surround myself, and again, I'll say this for me personally, I surround myself with just creative people who just want to do it for the love of it. Now, there are definitely
Right.
people out there who are probably quote unquote better in certain roles, or would do, quote unquote better job in certain things if I hired them, if they were professionals and I gave them money. But I don't have that money. So I can't, and therefore I'd rather just hire people who are cool and want to do it for the love of it, like myself.
Right.
If
Yeah.
the overall product isn't as great as it could be, well, guess what? The experience was better, and that's worth more to me. I don't know. Any thoughts
Yeah.
on
We were
hot
talking about
take?
casting, right? That's where we were at. We were talking about
Casting
casting.
and hiring crew, yeah.
Yeah. Um. So I did a an audition for Remission. That was the one audition I've ever had
Oh, I think I was
ever.
there for that, right?
Um. You. That's the first time I think I ever met you.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, it was either that or it was for your noir. I was at those auditions just watching
Oh, yeah.
actors come
Yeah.
in. Um, either way, I had that one audition for Remission. It was really awkward for me because I'm just socially kind of an awkward person
I
anyway.
remember that one guy.
Um,
What are you guys doing with this film after it's over? And you
yeah,
guys were just like deers in headlights. You're just like, because he was super professional, and you guys weren't.
well, he so that guy is he's been cast in I mean TV shows I've seen now. So I mean, and the thing is that guy was really good, but I mean, uh, I, he scared the shit out of us, so we couldn't cast him because we were terrified of him. So um, he was probably like, "Fuck those guys! I was the best one there," and he wasn't wrong because he was good. But Tyler and I were like, "I can't direct that person because he scares the shit out of me.
I remember
So,
looking over at you guys, and I'll never forget the looks on your faces. And the first thing that went through my head when that was happening was like, this guy would not accept the role even if you offered it to him. Because he's like,
no,
this is amateur hour. Because he was clearly looking for bigger things, which he has since attained, to his credit.
yeah, I don't know how he even got into that room, to be honest with you. I don't know how he saw that audition call. I don't know how somebody like that and again, we had actors in that movie that were fucking awesome. So the cast in that movie was, I mean, again, one of my favorite experiences ever. Um but again, I also had people in that room that I asked to come to that audition because I knew I wanted to cast those people. Like Deidre, she was somebody that I asked. He was like, "Will you just come and read for this part?" So there were people that I knew that I was going to cast in that movie. Um, the one person that didn't show up to the audition was cast as the lead, and I had a meeting with him at a coffee shop, and that's how he got cast.
I
So
think that casting is probably one of my favorite parts of the pre-production process, honestly.
I I agree,
I like
agreed.
casting quite a bit. I will do video auditions if we don't do them in person, because normally what we'll do is we'll have one or two in-person auditions, and those are hit or miss. Sometimes a lot of people show up, sometimes very few people show up. Kind of depends on the
Yeah,
day, the weather, how far away it is from, like, we've held some auditions in Lincoln that have gone well. Others have gone terrible because most of the actors are from Omaha area, and sometimes they don't drive down.
yeah,
So and I oftentimes just go send in a video audition. Just record
right,
yourself on your phone giving a monologue, or things of that nature, or here's the script, read the script that way, because then you can kind of do it on your own time. You're not beholden to having to drive somewhere to do it. I still like doing in-person auditions because I like to see the person right there in front of me. Gives me some time to sort of, because someone will always sort of talk to him a little bit, because we always have like the audition forms, right? And everything on the audition
right.
form says, what are your special traits, things that you can do. Oh, I'm really good at weapons and fighting training, or, well, yes, I will do nudity, or no, I will not do nudity, or, whatever, or I'm available these dates, not these dates. So you get a lot of information about that person right up front. And I like to be able to sometimes, after the audition is over, to just sort of chat them up a little bit. I always usually ask people, why do you want to be a part of this? Why? That's
Right.
one of my big things I do in the audition process. I will let them audition. They will run through their thing, and then I usually have a couple follow up questions. And the big one is, why do you want to be a part of this? Right? If the person wants to be part of it because they want to get paid and blah blah, then I know I'm not probably going to be working with that person because I'm not going to be able to pay them. Right? But if the person's
Right.
like, look, I'm just a fun, outgoing person. I want to do this. I think it'd be fun. Hell, I'll just sit on set and be an extra hand if I don't get cast. That's the kind of person I want to cast, right? Want to give an
Right.
opportunity to. That's another thing I like to do when I did the Calling of the Things Beyond. I specifically set out on that one to work with people I'd never worked with before. The entire cast was supposed to be people I'd never worked with before. Didn't end up that way because a couple people had to drop out fairly last minute. We had to replace them with people that we knew. But that was the idea behind that. And I met all kinds of cool people on that I'd never knew before. And you just sort of, I don't like to get stuck in the rut of the same people over and over and over. Not that they're bad people or anything, but it's like sometimes I just want to. I don't want every film I do to have the exact same cast and crew in it. So I like
Right.
to sort of mix it up with auditions.
Right. I've also been known to reach out to other directors and filmmakers and say, "Hey, I have this thing. Do you know anybody that may be good for
Yeah,
this?" I've done that too. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. So have
so
I.
anyway,
Next up, so I'm going to count that as a half. We don't hire crew, but we do like to
no,
cast actors. So I'm at two and a
right.
half right now. Two and a half. All right, here we go. Next up, special effects. So, do we plan for special effects? Do we write for special effects? I think the answer to this is fairly obvious. But what is
Yeah.
your thought on special effects?
So it used to be like when I would write special effects and stuff into a film, I would try to do it. I definitely put myself in a box. I was like, I'm just gonna do like bare minimum special effects and try to do something that I know will be kind of like, easy, and not anything like really crazy. And then I had a conversation. I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about how like just write what you want to see, and then you can either figure it out or you can't. Um, and I've never well, working with Heather, she's gotten really good about uh the special effects and stuff that I write anyway. I wrote shit on this last one that I was like, "There's no way we're gonna be able to do this." Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, special effects. I write into everything, and I go crazy now, and then just hope we can figure it out.
Yeah, pretty much
So
same here. I think almost all the films I've ever made has had some sort of special effect in it or props. And generally speaking, those are the most important things in the script to try to get right. Especially if you're doing a gory micro budget horror film, that's what people are going to
right,
remember. People are going to remember the effects, right? That's the pop that they get when they're sitting there watching it, like, oh, gross. And that's what sort of I won't say like your entire horror film that you write is designed just based on that, but that's a lot. That's a big part of it. Is if I'm making a slasher film, the kills have to be good, and I think a lot of the pre-planning, pre-production stuff has to do with the special effects. Can they be done? How much is it going to cost to get them done? We worked with Wetworks many times, and
hmm,
they were an expensive company, but Benito, and we go listen to our interview with Benito Garcia if you want to know more about his special effects work. That guy is so meticulous. They test and retest and test some more until it is right. And they get on
right,
set and the effect goes perfectly because they know that it's going to go perfectly because they've done that a million times. They also cost an arm and a leg. So it's like, you kind of, because I remember doing the jaw tear, bringing that up, and it was like, how is he going to pull that off? And he pulled it off.
right.
It just takes pre-planning.
Literally, he pulled it
Yeah,
off.
quite literally.
Well, pulled it right off.
Quite literally. So, special effects, yes, we have to plan for special effects. And, if you're not doing a horror movie, I think this still works because you have to plan for props. There's always going to be props in movies
Right.
that you need. And, Heather is amazing at creating props. She is like
Yeah.
a master prop. She's a prop master. And so she makes incredible stuff. So that's kind of like, it does not, just because it doesn't involve blood and gore spraying all over the place, maybe you got to make a bear trap or something of that nature, and
Right.
so yeah, you have to plan for all that stuff because that's the stuff that takes time, right? That takes a lot of time to put together and to make sure it looks well, especially for your effects artist. So you have to plan for that stuff.
Yeah, and we kind of started talking about effects for this last one, like months in advance, to give time for building and some testing and some stuff like that. So give yourself, like Matt said, a lot of
Yeah.
time to lead up
That
to it.
might actually be the thing in pre-production that you have to start right away. If you have gory
Yeah.
special effects in your movie, you got to get on that shit immediately and be in constant communication with whoever's doing the effects on it. Like, is it going to work? Where are you at on this effect and things of that nature? Because you want to be in the loop as to what's going on. Because on set, and we saw this on Pigface, things change. Something might not
Yep.
fit on the actress right, or there could be an issue, and things got to change, and you got to redo everything. So always have backup plans to backup plans for that kind of stuff. Next up, permits. Get permits. Josh, have you ever gotten a permit before on one of your micro budget movies?
No. I have never shot in a place where I've needed a permit. And that's not true actually. I have shot in a few places where I should have gotten a permit, and I didn't. Um, and that's not recommended.
Yes.
So, uh, but generally for what we do, micro budget wise, permits cost money, and money is something that you need to have in your budget, and a budget is something you need to have, and I've never had that. So, um, permits are nothing. This is not something I've had to deal with.
Yeah,
So,
me neither. I think almost every film that I've ever made, we've shot in either like a private home or private residence, like a bar or something, and be like, oh yeah, you can come in and film. Like for example, we got permission to shoot at Dish once, and
right.
there was no like permit for that. It was just a private business, and they said, yeah, come on in and film. We shot at Hot Shops before, but we didn't need a permit because they said, yeah, just come on in and film. I've never, I don't think, well, no, that's not true. I've shot in parks and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I did shoot in
Right.
downtown Lincoln in the Haymarket a couple times.
Me
We
too.
did not get permits for that. I remember it was guerrilla filming. We're like, we're just going to show up and film these dialogue scenes. It was no blood and guts or anything like that. No effects. It
Right.
was literally just people talking and things of that nature. And in theory, you should get permits for that. But I
Yes.
mean, you know what the city of Lincoln's going to say? They're going to say no. You can't come down.
Right.
So it's
So
like you show up, you knock it out as quick as you can. If someone comes around and asks, like, "Oh, we're leaving," and then you go around the corner and you try to knock out what you can.
right. There was a few years back in Lincoln at down in the Haymarket around the arena area. There was a film being shot where um, basically it was like a SWAT team or like
Oh, yeah, I
robbers or
remember
something,
that.
and they did not have a permit. And there's people running around downtown in the around the arena with guns,
Yes.
and people went fucking crazy, and the police were called, and all this shit went down, all because these people didn't pull a permit to film that kind of scene in that area. That's the kind of shit you might run into
Yeah.
if you don't pull a permit. um I remember the movie. I'm not gonna say it, but I remember the movie. um and so if you're gonna do shit like that, yeah, go the right way,
Yes.
and pull a
If
permit.
you have
Um,
anything that involves people running around with fake guns, and if you have anything that involves special effects, or anything that's more than like a simple, these two people are sitting on a bench talking to one another sort of thing,
right.
like obviously get a permit because you don't want to deal with anything like that. Now, I will say, like, I don't think other than that scene down in the Haymarket, we had an actress kind of running around pretending she was being chased by monsters, but we shot that as fast as we possibly could. I've
Yeah.
never really shot in a public place before, I don't think. Nothing that I can really
I
remember.
I shot in a
Yeah, I've
park,
done a park before.
and I shot in a parking garage one time, and that's the public shooting that I've done.
Okay,
So
interesting. So yeah, I can't say that I'm going to add that to the list because I've never got a permit before. So
no,
all right, this one we both do. Schedule shooting days.
yeah, it's the fucking worst. Um, that's my okay. So we're
We have
talking
different
about,
opinions on this.
yeah. This is my least favorite thing of all pre-production. Scheduling is my least favorite thing. I don't care because I know Matt's gonna say it, so I'm gonna try to jump in here first. I don't care if you are a master scheduler, something is going to go wrong. You're going to schedule something and it's going to rain, or an actor is going to be sick, or an actor is going to say, I have to work that day, or something is going to happen. I don't care if you schedule to shoot your movie for 15 days, at least one of those days, something is going to come up and you're going to have to reschedule or rewrite your schedule. That's where I'm putting the period.
Yeah, I disagree. Now, obviously, the caveat being you can't plan for weather. I mean, acts of God in nature, that's something that you can't plan for. I cannot imagine, other than the very first film I ever did back in 1999, when I was a high school film. I did not know what to expect. No one showed up for that, and the whole thing went haywire. But I am struggling off the top of my head to find any any film that I've done subsequent to that where I've had a scheduling problem that did not involve, you know, a horrible storm came through and washed out our location or something like that. Because that's a different category to me, right? That's something that's outside of my control. I feel
Right.
that if I am setting a schedule, and I will say it, I'm fucking great at setting schedules. That is the thing I'm probably best at, especially when it comes to pre-production, because I will pester people. I will make sure that they get the days off that they say they're going to do. I will not stop harassing them until they are 1000% sure they're going to be on set that day. And man, Josh, I can't think of a time that someone has not shown up on set when they were supposed to. Now, I can think of one in which I was very deeply concerned someone was not going to show up on set, and that was a Shivers Down Your Spine short. And it was a particular actor that I had been sort of warned, do not cast this person because they'll flake out on you. They won't show up. If they do show up, they will not know their lines. They will not do this. And I, had spoken with this actor. This actor had done a couple different video auditions for me. And I was like, you know what? I feel confident that this person is going to show up because of my relationship that I've established with this person over the past, month or two. And I cast them. And, they were supposed to show up on set at 3 p.m. And we get a phone call. Something went wrong. They're still at work. And everybody that was there was like, motherfucker. Like, we told you not to cast this person. They are not going to show. And everybody's here. Everybody's ready. We cannot film without this person. This person is a major portion. We cannot film without him. And I talked to the person on the phone. I was like, so when are you going to be here? And they're like, 4 o'clock. And I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yes. And so I got off the phone with the person. I'm like, look, they're going to be here at 4. They assured me they'll be here at 4. No one believed it. 3:58. This person drives up and they are there and they knocked out the rest of the stuff, no problem, and no problems with them whatsoever. That's the only time I can think off the top of my head where someone was actually late by like an hour or so, where we were literally legitimately fearful they would not show up because of the reputation that they had. But they were great, and I had no problems with this individual after that. And I think we worked together after that as well. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
great at it. I love it. I love scheduling.
I,
It's one of my favorite parts, honestly.
you get conflicts from people when you say, "Hey, from this date to this date, what are all your conflicts?" And then I have no problem writing a schedule. I don't run into any problems writing a schedule. I get conflicts from people. I say they're good this date, they're not good this date, and I just schedule something else. No problem. We did the schedule for Pigface 2, really no problem. We got all the conflicts from everybody and just scheduled when everybody was available, and it really wasn't that bad. And it didn't even take us that long really to put it together. But again, so I think my sour taste in my mouth comes from the amount of times we've been rained out.
Yeah, you can't blame for
Um,
that.
and we did have a day where we had a sick actor who just could not come to set uh, because they were really sick. Um, and stuff like that. Like that's the stuff that I can't. Me personally, if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I'm really sick," there's no way. I just even if I was a pestering person, I would be like, "Well, you have to come. You just be sick here. Uh, you have to. You're scheduled today, so you have to be here." Micro budget filmmaking, the way I guess my attitude works is, and I've said this a million times, I owe you everything and you owe me nothing. So if you call me and say, "Hey, I can't. I'm just really sick," I can't be an asshole and be like, "Well, you have to be here." That's me. That's just my personality anyway. So
Yeah,
that's the scheduling issues I run
I've
into.
recast people before. on previous films where, and one of the things I will tell people, if there's an actor that I have that I'm sort of unsure about, right? Are they going to flake out on me? Like if, like for example, if it's a new person I've never worked with before, and I'm not sure, I'm just getting maybe a little bit of a vibe that they might not show up. I tell them right up front, I've got somebody else lined up. If you don't show up, I will cast the other person, and we'll just you're done. You won't be on the film
Right.
at that point in time. And I'm very sort of open with individuals about that kind of stuff. So that's one of my tricks. Like I always have an understudy lined up because you see
Right.
multiple people. In my case, in most cases, it's like I can see multiple actors working in this role, and if there's an actor that's really great, but they're difficult. And then there's an actor who's just really good, but they're going to be awesome to work with and show up and not be fuck the person that's great. No offense, but if you're going to be a
Right.
problem, I'm just cutting you loose, and I'll take the other person, and I'll believe in my directorial skills that I can get them from very good up to great, and from where I want them to be. So that's
Right.
just a thing I do as well. I always tell people like, hey, I loved your performance because I'll send them an email if they don't get cast. I always do that as a courtesy. Send them an email and be like, look, you weren't selected, but if this doesn't work out with this person, you're the one I'm going to. So you might want to keep those days free, at least up through the first couple weekends to see, if this person is going to be a problem. Because once you hit a point of no return, you're just stuck with the person that's an asshole if you
Right.
have to do that way. But so yeah.
Right.
And the last thing we got here, Josh, arrange for equipment rentals.
Yeah, I don't ever do that either. We don't rent
Yeah, we
equipment.
don't either.
We just have what we need to micro budgetly make a film. So there's no crazy equipment on set for us.
Yeah, I have done that once before, and that was on Blood Model. I told Mark, I was like, Mark, I want this really long tracking shot. This is what I want. And Mark got the track, like got the actual track and rented it, and rented a bunch of lights, and rented all the stuff when this was a big production, right? And I hated it. Right, I just don't. It slows everything down. I just don't like it. And we're lucky enough that DJ on our end, DJ owns everything. He owns all the equipment you could possibly want and imagine, so we don't ever have to rent anything. Again, I'm conscientious of micro budget filmmakers that have to rent stuff and they have to get that stuff because they don't own it. But I was just always lucky to be in a situation where I knew people that had all that stuff already, and I didn't have to
Right.
rent any of it. So those are the 11 things, Josh. How many did you end up having total?
I think three, maybe three and a
I had four
half,
and a half,
maybe.
four and a half things.
Yeah, in that it's in the area. I stopped counting to be
Is
honest
there
with
any?
you.
Is there
Um,
anything else that you can think that you do pre-production wise that we haven't covered?
I don't know if you want to call this pre-production, but I always do in my because my favorite thing, I think, what I would in pre-production that I would put in there is your very first read through.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, that could go there.
is my favorite thing about pre-production. The first time that you get your full cast in a room, and sometime it's the first time those people are meeting each other because they haven't worked together before, and you get to see like the dynamic, and you get to see how people kind of kind of mix with each other, and you get to see all the personalities kind of blend together, and it's your first time really seeing how and if people are going to work well together sometimes because you did a video audition or you cast two people that didn't know each other who read really well but you never did a reading with them together. It's the first time you get to hear your script out loud, not just in your head. um, it's my favorite part. I love the first and second and third read through. I love getting actors in the room and just listening to them, put your stuff together. That's my favorite part of pre-production.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that initial read through is really fun. I know during COVID it kind of sucked because when we were preparing Tingles Down Your Spine, we had to do everything
Right.
online, right? Like Google Meets, and
Right.
it's not the same as getting everybody in there. And it's you get that sort of not only validation as if the jokes that you write pop or the scenes are very
Right.
like, oh, gross. You get that reaction of people. That's always great to get that initial energy going. But it's also good to just get everybody to know each other a little bit more,
Right.
and in trying to sort of build those bonds that you're going to go through when you're making this movie, that initial sort of building of the friendships that is what we're chasing, what we're looking for when we're making these micro budget movies.
Hmm.
Anyway, it kind of starts there a lot of times, and you have the opportunity to have the actors sort of feel engaged and invested in the project because they can put their own spin, they can try new lines, they can help improve the script, and yeah, that's a very, very important point in pre-production, and something that we definitely do a lot as well, or did.
Yeah. So sometimes that's the only time some of those actors will meet each other.
Have you ever? Let me
I
ask you
guess.
this: have you ever had a situation where you've gotten actors together and either you realize there is no chemistry here between these two characters, and that you're like, I think I cast this wrong? Because sometimes that happens. Sometimes, like, you, the actors, you get them together, and it's like, this is not going to play. This is not going to work.
Um, I haven't worked with. Uh, I've only worked with a big cast 2 or 3 times. And I've never had it where if there was a problem, we couldn't figure it out. I guess. Um, the answer is no. I haven't really had a problem with actors not um flowing well together. So
Hmm.
no.
Okay. Well, good.
So, but again, I've only worked with a big cast. Like generally, the cast that we work with, 2, 3, 4 people, 4 people maybe. I mean, they're small. When we make a short, which is generally what we make, we write shorts with like 3 or 4 people in it. It's not they're not big cast shorts. I know the shorts that you make, you have a bigger cast and stuff. We just don't do that. So I mean, Remission was the biggest cast I think I've ever worked with, and that was 13 or 14 people if you didn't count Zombie Days.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Cool. Well, that's it. I don't think I
yeah,
have anything else in pre-production. I will. Well, I guess let me throw this out to any filmmakers who might be listening. One big thing to do in pre-production is have group meetings regularly. So,
yes,
make sure that you have a cast group and or a production group, and at least once a month. Ideally more than that, but at least once a month, have like a, hey, okay, on a Sunday at 1 o'clock, we're all going to get together and we're all going to discuss sort of what's going on so far, and what we're planning to do. Where are you at on this? This is your job. How far into it have you gotten? Give me updates on this. Give me, especially if you're the director, you need to know what's going on with everything.
right.
So always, always, always have production meetings. I think that's very, very important. You don't want to get into a situation where it's like suddenly you're on set and like, oh, I can't do that. Well, why not? Well, we never really had discussed it. Should have had a production meeting, a month ago,
Yep.
telling me I could. This wasn't going to get done, so now we're not scrambling on set to try to figure out a new way to do this. So it's always
Yeah.
good to have production meetings. So that's something that I would add to that as well.
100% agree.
And
So
again, yeah,
yeah,
we'll probably touch on a lot of this stuff in more detail as we do more episodes of the Once More for Safety show. That's all I got. You have anything else, Josh?
I got nothing right now. I'm gonna start promoting the shit out of the film festival here in a
Do
little
it.
bit, but
Do it.
not today.
Oh, why
So
not?
I mean,
I could post this now. I could post this show tonight.
that's true. I mean, we're only a couple months away from the
Yeah.
festival, and I don't know when it's going to come out. So if this drops October 6th, then tomorrow and the 8th and the 9th come out to Seward to the Rivoli Theater and come on check out some Nebraska-made films. That's it. That's my promo for right now. If these start coming out, before then, I will do a better promo. But for now, that's what you
I'm
get.
pretty sure this is going to come out before because we don't have any others in the bank other than the Isabel. See, we have these two really long Isabel ones that we recorded, and they've been uploaded to YouTube. They're there. They're ready to be posted. And every time I go to post one, I'm like, I don't want to do it. They don't get posted. So this will definitely...
Those are two of my favorite ones.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. So yeah, we will. This will definitely be posted. Yeah, check out the Flatwater Film Festival. What is it? FlatwaterFilmFestival.com. Is that where you go to check out all the?
Yeah, FlatwaterFilmFestival.com, and it's also on Facebook. And we're still for another couple weeks accepting films through Film Freeway. So, and it's free. It costs you nothing. Just submit some shit.
For sure. So. With that, thanks everybody for listening to another episode of the Once More for Safety show. Next week we'll be back with something. Interview, topic, I don't know.
We don't know anymore.
Something.
Just flying up, yeah.
And cut.